Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekend reset. We have a special for you tonight. I think it's going to be a great event for y'all. We're actually going to do a debate. I wasn't planning on doing a show this week. Things are actually looking very, very positive in our nation. Bipartisanship coming together. People actually talking across the table. I was reached out in a challenge. The challenge was fantastic. I think it's going to be great. Please allow me to introduce fantastic Stephen Leon to the stage. I am thrilled to have this. This is great.
Hi everyone. Some of y'all may know I my show is right after Joe's, and I heard a few things and just transitioning from 8:30 to 9, and then I was like, why don't we do a debate? And this will be cool. We've had a chance to talk on the phone for several hours. The platform is there's going to be 7 topics, 2-minute opening statements for each, and then rebuttals alternate, 2 minutes each, and then so I'm from Virginia's 8th District as a write-in. There's some circumstances with all that. It's on my website. And then, of course, Joe's in Texas 17. So what I'm going to do is just like kind of like on the house floor. Usually when I do my GCD shows, it's just a few, bullet points. And then I just go ahead and I jump in with, I just freeform. So with those 7 topics, I'll do max 2 minute. I probably won't even use the full 2 minutes of a statement of the 7 items that we'll talk about, and then rebuttals will just be a free form like that. So it'd be just like kind of like a house floor. It'd be a good practice for myself to see. You guys can see how I would, as far as you can tell Zoom just to kind of see that. And so it'll be written form in that statement, and then free form after that. So since I'm the challenger, I've asked Joe to go first, and he should have the topics there. If not, we're going to time each other. We're going to do our best. I mean, hopefully we won't use the full 2 minutes, but this should stretch over for an hour. So my show will just transition to this one as is. So I've got a stopwatch. I'll do my best, but we'll just say word time if we've gone over or anything like that. So.
Absolutely. Dude, tremendous respect. I really appreciate the format you gave me. I think it's a great format. Understanding the topics that were given, the layout that was given, you've done a wonderful job. I actually think I might be replicating this. This is very responsible, very respectable. I have to say, this is going to be great. So I'm Joseph, District 17. I lost my primary, but I am still going to be running in the midterms. Just to keep it to the points, we want to make sure people see us not literally running for each other's seats, but how we would react to each other on the House floor, how debate should be held, how we should look at each other as respectable representatives, not as jabs to each other to just get the better half. So for this debate, yes, 7 topics. It's going to be fantastic. First off, I'm going to let out the topic opening up will be the climate crisis. Climate crisis, our climate standpoints, understanding where we stand on the climate, where oil is going, where technology is going, what really stands in the way of us, but as what we can do for our country and our planet. It is not just the United States effort. It is more of a global effort when it comes to the climate. It's not necessarily on the top of everyone's list, but to us, it is something to be approached and let known. So, Leon, if I may ask, when it comes to the climate crisis, what are your main bullet points? What is your main objective?
Well, are we starting with the format?
Yes. Right?
So did you already do your statement?
Yes, or no, I'm asking you, and then I'll give my statement. Or
so with what'll go with the climate change, do your 2-minute statement, and then I'll do my 2-minute statement, and then you'll rebut me, and I'll rebut that. Then we'll go to the next topic.
Oh, okay. I thought I was opening up a question to you, but it's fine. When it comes to me, the climate crisis, I do see our world changing. I see the history. Whether you look at scientists, you look at thousands to millions of years ago, it's an issue. But we have technologies. We have, I guess you would say, technologies that we need to adjust. We have oil rigs on land as at sea. We have pipelines delivering natural gas, delivering oils. I see it crucial for the American development in our technologies. I see it as an extremely crucial point, and I do agree with Trump's notion of drill, baby, drill. The energy must come first. We need to unleash the American energy. Energy. God, I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words, but that is my statement. And as for you, I yield to you.
Okay. Every year, more and more people are realizing the urgency of this international challenge. The United States is the world's largest oil producer. The focal point to resolve is by offsetting fossil fuel financial assets, which would diversify the market and workforce. Refusing to adapt now would be disastrous to catastrophic. Even higher prices and cost of public health would make existence for most people dystopian. Many are already there. This can be accomplished without overt government investing. So we'll open up to the free form questions. What did you have for me, Joe?
So you would say we are the top producer of energy, the top oil driller. We produce the most oil, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Not to say that Saudi Arabia is up there because they are. I guess you would challenge the notion between the petrodollar, the United States. We do have the primordial basin. There's more oil there than anywhere else on the planet, is what the claims are. There are claims in Alaska being more oil up there. There is also claims that even Canada has more oil than America combined. Yet we are not pulling from Canada. We're not pulling from the frac sands. That is to be understood since we closed the Keystone Pipeline from Canada. That was Biden's one of his first executive orders. I think it was a mistake. I've seen quite a few stories on the effects of it, but I understand oil to most people is a problem, to other people is a prospect. Me personally, I see oil as a petroleum use to where we need to go with that. As for foreign intervention, Saudi Arabia, other places, even Ukraine, and I mean, South Africa, South America, most definitely, because there's a few issues brewing up there when it comes to shale oil and oil in the Gulf, which I see as a big problem. I don't really want to be drilling in the Gulf, but oil is still oil. I want to find better alternatives, better solutions, and quite frankly, ways to benefit us technologically. But at the same time, again, you're right. Our number one outlook for the United States is American oil, American industry. And I see that being a very key aspect in the situation. So when it does come to, I believe, basically the climate crisis, we need to focus more on the technologies that we have today, mainly to boost ourselves. And I go on like a record on our technologies of today for a betterment of the future. We shouldn't be here in 50 years. We shouldn't be here in 30 years. We should be looking forward to the future. All right, I'll call time.
Okay. So yeah, I think Saudi Arabia is number two. The idea with the fossil fuel assets offsetting the green premium is these companies would still own those financial assets. Otherwise, when environmental justice has its day, the chiefs and everything that own these companies, Carlyle Group's one of them, they own a lot of real estate here, they're going to pass that cost onto consumers and their shareholders. So this isn't a government, when I talk about mandating fossil fuel assets to offset the green premium, it isn't to sequester or take away anyone's jobs. We want to delegate that out with when you do that for the green premium, what's going to happen, the private sector, the patents are out there. The government can use their power just to flip that little switch, and then with the finances, and none of that money is going to come. It's not a Green New Deal. It's not going to come back to the government. That's all that would allow the transition to naturally happen. And the fossil fuel companies would still own those assets. So they're diversifying, as I mentioned in my statement. So, yeah, how to delegate jobs. If you want to, instead of going out of town, leaving your family for a month or 6 months or whatever it is on an oil rig, you can go sequester carbon from the oceans or farm. And the byproduct of sequestering CO2 from the oceans is hydrogen through hydrolysis. You can work security on location at a solar farm. This is about energy diversity. It's not just solar panels. It's not just wind turbines. Advanced nuclear energy, that is the backbone of everything until fusion gets here. Hopefully fusion will get here. And who knows, other forms of energy. And there's all kinds of sci-fi stuff. The patents are out there. We need to get them invested in. And otherwise, you're not offsetting anything. You're not negating anything. And the most important thing is that we want to protect jobs in that process and delegate them out. And who knows, in the future, any miners that are out there, they have space programs. Your children, with all that, everything we've learned with mining, they could be mining asteroids, a generation or two or three, depending on how quickly we can come together with all that. I'm going to call time. And the next topic is Harris versus Trump tax policy. Do you want me to go ahead and let me jump on this since we're alternating?
Yeah, I started the last one. You can go ahead and start this one.
So All right. Between both Harris and Trump, they're basically saying that 2 trillion in debt for either providing minimal patchworks for housing and the environment or permitting the rich to get richer and screwing over the environment. As I am supporting Harris, debt can be addressed by legislative novelties such as big data tax, which is not to be passed on to consumers with price gouging. Other improvements to socioeconomics can be, I'm sorry, I backed up. Revenues there are estimated at 1 trillion per year for the big data tax. That, of course, is no reason to spend irresponsibly. Other improvements to socioeconomics can be escalated by mitigating corporate monopolies from both the public and private sector.
Okay.
Yield.
All right. So when it comes to the taxes on Biden and Harris, I mean, I look at it like this. If we go with Trump's plan, or you know what, I'll start with Harris's plan. If we go with Harris's plan, with Harris, we're looking at higher taxes on businesses and high earners. We have corporate tax. We got benefit tax, or not benefit tax, the individual tax going up. We got so much. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be drawing a blank here, but just looking at mainly looking at the tax foundation's ordinance, I just see Harris's plan. God, geez, I guess I'm a bit overloaded with all of it. Huh. Well, I do apologize for this. It's such a interesting topic. Just with Harris's tax plan. God, geez, imagine me on the House floor on this notion falling apart. I see this. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I have all my notes here. I can't come up with the reasonable. I guess it's either my handwriting or my truck being turned off with the heat. But it's just. I apologize. I'm gonna have to yield.
Well, give yourself a break, Joe. I know you're, what do you say? You're on the road 11 hours a day.
Oh yeah, I just finished up a 10-hour shift. I mean, I had all this stuff. I'm thinking about all the. I mean, I just burnt out
Oh,
my
no.
2 minutes. I
Okay,
might
yeah, let me
started at
start.
4.
No, don't worry about it. Okay, so I'm resetting the clock here. Oh, crap. This is what, well, good news is we're self-moderating and doing this ourselves. 2 minute start. So from everything that I just said, look at what's interesting about the no tax on tips. That would create a deficit in taxes where the economy is used to getting those taxes in, and it probably wouldn't help much anyways. I'm not saying that's not a reason to do it. At least that.
I mean, when it comes to the taxes on tips, and I'm sorry to cut you off, and I don't mean to. I'm just throwing away these notes because not that they're illegible, but they just distract me. They're a pain in the ass, and I don't normally do them. Taxes on tips, me personally, I think it's a great idea. Trump came up with it first. Harris came up with it second. And
yeah, since they're both agreeing on it, well, what is that going to do? It's going to create a deficit, and both those policies are going to create deficits anyway. So on one hand, you got either
I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, they haven't really finalized a lot of that stuff, and the fact that we should look at that objectively if we're going to do taxes on tips. Another thing, that's why I mentioned this really cool thing about the big data tax and how we can get I think it's 1.3 trillion for that, and that's pretty good as long as we can negotiate with the private sector to not impose price gouging. How do you do that? That's tricky. Economists have always it's very difficult to find a credible source from an economist that says that price controls like that could work. And now if you negotiate that, how do you do that? Especially when data is going to continue to be escalated. There's going to be continue, like it doesn't stay that way. Maybe it's a percentage or ratio, but then you have to look at population and data usage. And that's also an international challenge because data.
Okay.
So yeah, that stuff's still moving. You know what I mean? It's just important that if whatever, those are executive policies, you know what I mean? And we have to find ways, whether whoever it is we're supporting, Trump or Harris, and whoever wins, we hold them accountable to that. And then we can be objective with the experts. And that's what being a representative is, listening to that and then bringing it to the table rather than just, falsifying and pointing the finger and name calling, all that. So I'm going to go ahead and call time. Did you want to add more to that for this topic or move on to the next one?
Yeah, I would like to just touch back on now that I got my mind cleared. I appreciate the
I'll give you 2
I guess
minutes.
the save as if you would, but when I look at our tax policies when it comes to tariffs, so that's one of the only things that the Harris and Biden campaign kept in place was the Trump tariffs, jumping into really attacking, not attacking, but increasing corporate tax, which I'm not I can see depending on the regulations. But when I look at corporate tax, I also look at the corporate interest and the employees, your average day, every American. I mean, I'm part of a mega carrier. There are several mega carriers out there. I've always gotten a tax return. I've always also am reaping repercussions from when I made a lot of money from 2021. And now I have to pay into the tax, which is not a problem, but it's just, it goes into the factor of paying taxes. My issue is when you have everyday Americans struggling to make ends meet, and we have all these taxes, let alone whether it be income tax or the individual, tips for a majority of service industries, not just people who work at Hooters, which is going down, or Red Lobster that's going down, but also at the poker tables where they get paid tips. They're going to be taxed on that. They're going to be heavily impacted by it. And quite frankly, I would look at it, and I'm about to close with it and yield my time. Why focus on our people's income when we can focus on our spending as a Congress and a nation, and our tariffs that we bring in and export? But I'll yield with that. I don't. If you want to respond to it, I'm all for it.
No, we'll move on to border security.
Okay,
You want to, it's on you.
sure. Our border is pretty much as porous as it can be, is what is claimed. From the point to where Texas and Governor Abbott had to open up and say, "Hey, we need a." And by the way, it took them a little too much longer than I would like, but it took to the fourth year of Biden's administration for Governor Abbott to make any moves, let alone New Mexico and Arizona, where if Kari Lake got elected as governor when she was running, which she lost, she would have declared a state of emergency. We have a border that is apparently wide open. We're letting an influx of criminal aliens or illegal immigrants or undocumented citizens. Quite frankly, our population is being increased from anywhere from 5% to 15% of 300 million, which is apparently the population of the United States. Me personally, I think our border needs to be tackled and it needs to be adjusted. We need to stop all influx of people coming in. That way we can register, reform our system, be sure that people can come in through asylum properly and not through the asylum that was just basically hand out green cards and applications. But I yield with that.
Yay. Walls are too expensive and ineffective. Skilled personnel and technology can keep illegal immigration at bay. The root causes of illegal immigration are naturally foreigners fleeing poor socioeconomics, though that's not our responsibility, and we have our own challenges here. People want jobs to stay on this continent by decoupling from China. By doing this and advancing our technological needs, a surplus of jobs can be delegated to Central and South America by establishing a 70-30 ratio for what I've been calling the Gross Domestic Product Protection Act. Yield.
Understandable. We lately been seeing quite a bit of influx into our border. Well, not influx into our border just recently. It's been an ongoing thing for the past 4 years. I do believe this nation is a nation, a melting pot that is for everyone to come and enjoy legally. Although the melting pot has then been changed out for a chamber pot, whether it's the smallest minority of influx or not, we have criminals coming in, murderers, rapists, robbers, you name it. It is detrimental. With that being said, I am very worried for the future of America, the jobs that it produces, the jobs it takes away, the benefits that are given to these individuals, whether it's in New York City or Los Angeles. It breaks my heart to see hardworking Americans get their lives basically put on the back burner. Those who applied for our actual asylum be put on the back burners, and those who applied for citizenship be put on the back burners. I want to see a new reform, a new way to get in this country more efficient. I'm all for that, but it needs to be done legally. It needs to be done respectfully. These people just pouring into the border and the Biden administration giving straight amnesty is unacceptable. And I think we need, as a Congress, to come together and find a solution to that. And I yield.
Okay. So the borders, illegal immigration is decades long. You can see the data on it where Obama was president. We had very, very few migrant encounters. When I say few, that's, tens of thousands, but where it spiked, it's been going on for decades, right? So we're not looking at just the last 5 years. Every president has had to deal with it. So it's unfair to blame any president. But if you look at those lowest numbers of recent are going to be Obama. And he used ICE. It was very methodical and humane. And then when Trump was president, he had imposed an embargo on Venezuela, and his staff had advised him, if you do this, it's going to cause an influx of migrants, and that's exactly what happened. Venezuelans illegally crossed. Number two, it's up to like 7 million, something like that. And yes, the percentage of those are fortunately committing crimes and things like that. So do citizens. It does make it okay. That's another topic. But the data is there that most crime is not committed by illegal immigrants. So now Trump creating that embargo, establishing that embargo was before COVID. So you also can't say that that justifies the border because of where those numbers at when he campaigned on it. So, I go back to that to socioeconomics and everything like that. And one thing I want to call out the incumbent, and then I'm gonna yield at a minute and 30 seconds here, is that there was a recent bill that was passed through for the Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act. Those who were found guilty of sex crimes. He voted nay. Abigail Spanberger voted yay, and they just had a women's conference about it. And I've asked him, why did he vote no? I would have voted yes. I would also ask the district what they would have had me do, and then we can hash it out. And then, so with that, I will yield, and I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is
If I may just
corruption.
rebut to that real quickly. We
Okay.
have several nations, especially in Latin America, and I'll brief it to a minute. It's
All right.
51. I'll be done at 52.
Mm.
They are emptying their jails, they're emptying their prisons. I've been seeing too many accounts of this. We are not getting their best, as Trump said back in 2016. I don't know what kind of conflation that must be, but when you are released from prison in El Salvador for murder and rape, and you're told if you come back, we'll kill you, and you go to our border and they say, are you in danger? If you go back to your country and you say, yes, I'll be executed or imprisoned, then that they don't ask any more details. That could be hearsay, naysay, but that's what the reports that I'm seeing from several different independent medias. But quite frankly, it worries me. And I'm not saying it's jelly beans in a pot that are poisoned. I'm saying it's immigrants coming to this country that have their own free will to do their own volition, and I yield.
With the last 10 seconds, I'll add to that where actually those illegal immigrants have contributed to the economy, but then the principle's out of whack. I get that. What do you do when you have all those different factors and DACA revisions and put people, American citizens first? I get that. So with corruption, let me.
We're going to have fun.
Corruption is not inherent of our institutions that check and balance us. Everyone knows that big money has turned our democratic republic into a plutocracy, which our founders forewarned, moreover, which our country was founded by opposing the monarchical variety. The American Anti-Corruption Act mitigates the pursuit of funding in our elected campaigns and legislations by prohibiting lobbyist bundling, closing the revolving door, ending unconstitutional gerrymandering, and election reforms. This would ensure most of the elect's time and their staff is actually focused on working by the people's needs than campaigning for funds for the next election or appeasing special interests by our laws therewith. I've also signed the American Promise Pledge, which aims to set reasonable limits for money in our elected campaigns. Time.
Wow, that was good. I really enjoy this. And in fact, I'm very appreciative that you are able to articulate these in very fine ways, especially these topics. We have members who are supposed to represent us, both Democrat and Republic, that goes to these offices that are to hold us at these high standards of what the interests of the American people are. Me personally, I go in thinking I don't have a stock portfolio. I don't have an agenda. I just want what's best for the American people. And I'm sure you do too. Although there's those who have investments in stocks and personal affiliations with companies, whether it be the military industrial complex, the AI industrial complex, or just industrials in general, whether it's construction, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, you name it. Everyone has their fingers in the pot. I think that's an extreme problem in our country. I think everyone who is your average day working Joe is wondering why they're struggling to buy groceries, and everyone else is complaining about their properties, yet they have someone else go and buy their groceries for them. With that being said, I think we need to have what we would both agree on, the anti-corruption acts that are being passed, that are being presented, that will be presented with bipartisan efforts. Unfortunately, they'd be opposed by interests, but with that, I think it's a good setup. I would love to talk more about it, but I'm going to yield.
So yeah, it really does come down to the American Anti-Corruption Act already has a 90% approval across party lines by the people themselves. So anyone that wouldn't support it is supporting corruption. And it's very
Exactly.
important.
It's a bipartisan.
Yeah, and it's very important to recognize anyone, you can tell from my written statement there on how I opened saying that our federal institutions that hold us accountable are not inherent to that corruption. Those whoever is saying that, if they're like Vivek or whoever is coming and saying that those need to be taken away, or reform maybe depends on what it is, but to downsize or all this other stuff, and because they're a part of that, they want to establish their own plutocracy. They want to make it worse. So that's why I opened up with that statement saying that our federal institutions are not inherent of that. Sure, if you're in the military, you go through basic and you have your ASVAB score and all that stuff, and you commit a sex crime, does that mean that the entire army or whatever it is responsible for sex crimes? No. If it becomes
Nope.
systematic, then they need to be some HR things. So that's a part of my plan too, or military and
Maybe
veterans.
court martial. It's very
Yeah,
different in the
with
military.
military and veteran, like more HR programs. I'm not talking necessarily, maybe just part of that basic training. Like, look, if you guys are going to date, then date or set something up, and set it by that, where women and men can work together, in places wherever there might be. Then that's just something that we're all seeing a lot, whether it is in our institution, sexual harassment, all kinds of, that's really difficult thing for a independent woman on whatever aisle that she sits to just go out there and be free, and then not have some guy, and staring at you, always trying to get in your pants or whatever it is, and just appreciate a woman, ask her out. Like, why does it have to be? And these numbers, like, they're there, they're very real. It's not the masses, but it's still important that we find solutions to those things. And I will yield.
If I could respond just real quickly, I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of goes good for both sides. Um, there are women in the military, there are women in general population. They seek to anchor someone. They seek to put them in a situation where they can't refuse. It puts them in a bad spot, especially in military courts, because adultery under military standards is very highly frowned upon to the point of punishment on the court martial. There's also debts that need to be due, obligations that need to be set. It's a very, and I'm not military, I'm not claiming to be military, but the stories I've heard, the people I've seen, and people I've talked to, they've had their run in through the mills. I feel for them. I understand them. And it is a interesting situation they're in. I can't really speak much on it. But that being said, I will yield. But I believe our next topic, if we're going to go into that, are we?
Yeah.
Is artificial intelligence, correct?
Yep. That's on you.
Uh, you've opened my eyes to this, to more prospective. I've always seen artificial intelligence, AI, as a tool. Now it's starting to become a problem in the workforce to where it's going to be threatening jobs, taking away jobs, and putting people out of work. I find this to be a great threat to our democracy, our republic, our foundation of a country, and the absolute outlook of how can I build a better future for me and my family if an AI takes my job. If you could please enlighten me on your statement, because I'm very skeptical about this. I'm very weary about it. I would love to hear your opinion on it when it comes to the AI infiltration on our job fair.
Sure, it's all about finding the balance of complementing and using it. So my statement is replacing workers with computational automation has already begun in California's fast food industry by sidestepping their $20 per hour minimum wage. The
Yes.
hypothesis of 20% or more of all jobs could result a generation of lost workers with no new jobs being created. Then everyone else pick up the tax revenue. As IT jobs are projected to be most affected by automation, what makes most sense is to protect this vulnerability by mandating businesses of certain size to obtain AI certification combined with advancing federal human resources discriminatory policy.
I could agree. In fact, you saying that about 4 months ago, I was actually in the valley going down I-5. I stopped at the outlet malls. Sure enough, there is what would you call it? An In-N-Out burger. And I went there. I mean, I'm used to Whataburger. I'm from Texas. I love it. It's my go-to burger place. But when I walk up to the door, first thing I see, now hiring $20 an hour. I thought, wow, dang, they really pay their guys interesting up here. And then when I got to the counter, I really saw the price effects. Well, we could talk about price gouging, but when you have someone at a minimum wage position making $20 an hour, the prices are going to reflect. That is an incentive on these businesses to truly put in, whether it's self checkout or self ordering. Why should we pay someone X amount of dollars when we can buy a machine that will take someone's orders for us or make the burgers for us? These technological advancements, they will save us money in the long game. I'm not sure if I really want to tax that, but I mean, shoot, we tax our trucks, we tax our cars, we tax everything that we do on the road. Why should these machines be any different, in my opinion? Because one, you're taking away a position, an entry level job, or even a chance to benefit from the job. You go into this system, you could be making more money, or you could be making a living for yourself, or an entry level job or an experience, yet they want to outsource it to technological advancements that really shouldn't be held. And the same could be said in another topic is self-driving trucks and self-driving cars. But with that, I mean, it's just something that we need to look at, something we need to adhere. It shouldn't be something that is abused and made to punish the working class. I cannot stand it. But I mean, I don't see it as a partisan left-right issue. It's a bipartisan issue. I will yield the rest of my time.
We're doing really good here, so we can probably, with that
Oh,
rest,
yes.
so we can probably go over some of these topics moving on. So with AI, artificial intelligence and jobs, so having a $20 per hour minimum wage in California reflects a lot of what's going on with the unchecked corporate greed. And you're going to like what I've done in the American Capitalism Protection Act. I watched that movie Hoffa, and I was like, well, why don't you just give people that drive trucks tax breaks, incentives, because they're the ones delivering goods to the shelves. So that's not something that I just came up with because I saw you on the show. That is something that I put in there a long time ago with the
Well,
American
I
Capital
appreciate it.
Protection. Yeah, because I mean, no matter what's going to happen, we don't want robot trucks. You've seen the movie Logan. We don't want that, and they're already starting to do that in other places. So, but if AI can help you, and I mean, even if you pass out on when you're driving, it's automated, wakes you up, like really wakes you up. So, why have a $20 an hour? That just shows you, like around here, like we've been wrestling around with that, but not all jobs should pay so much, especially entry level or what, depending on what the output is. They raise that so they can compete, just so they can try and survive with rents, food, energy. Stuff is going. It's again, it all printed out of the principle. It all goes down to corporate America going unchecked for too long. I'm not talking about suppressing innovation. I'm finding that right balance that allows the private sector to thrive and the people themselves in it, instead of it's a symptom of the private sector buying out politicians and then looking for they're using our tax dollar to make them more rich. So we need to, again, that goes back to corruption and how to just mitigate that, the lobbying, the bundling, everything like that. So people can come first. And the incumbent here, some may want to see that it shows a sign of his representation with how brilliant he is to go back to school during one of the worst Congresses in US history, study AI, and then have no position to protect jobs from it. Plus, there's that Washington Post Live interview that he did, where he says he's not worried about our existential jobs. He thinks all 20% of all jobs, he's not worried about it. He actually said this. It's like the bone just came out of his mouth and he hasn't
Yeah.
addressed it. If
I'm
you
not
saw
going to
any of
call.
the videos,
I guess I'll call time, but I'm going to add on to what you're saying. I mean, you look at these politicians, you look at the bones in their mouths, the money going into their pockets. I mean, Gavin Newsom in California is a good example, and why we're here. The $20 per hour, I guess, limit, then subverted with an exemption unless you make your own bread. I'm not pointing at a certain bread making fast food joint, Panera Bread. I mean, it's not that I'm going to be pointing them out too much, but whose whose fingers on whose pie? Why are we trying to kowtow to these individuals without really looking at the big picture? When
yeah,
it comes to our economy,
$12 an hour might be a better for a federal minimum wage. Everyone wants to raise it, but once you start, perfect example is happening in California. You raise it to 15, 18, 20. They're going to lay off the workforce, and these corporations are going to put machines in, and that's where we're going to start seeing. It's almost like
that's what we're going to go see. And they're going to look for their bottom line. They're not going to want to, oh,
that's what
well,
their
our people
shareholders
are
want.
seeing
That's
this.
what their
We're a
shareholders
union.
want.
No, the perfect company is a company that has the mindset of a union, but the integrity of a sole proprietor.
Yeah. I
Me,
mean, that's how
me
corporations are. I
personally,
get that. I mean, you
or
want
they
it like,
should.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to stand, I'm not changing business. I own a B Corp, and my thing is I build IP instruments and move on to something else. And I move on to this because I feel like I need to. So I'm not, but with B Corps are different with the stock that's in there. So the bottom line is that with B Corps is that they have to benefit society and the environment. So it's a for-profit corporation. There's no money in
Yeah.
it. So, and I get that. So it's just important that shareholders voice that out. Be like, if it comes to fossil fuels, as I mentioned before, like eventually that we don't do something about it, but their CEOs and everything are talking about. Let's go ahead and move on to abortion, and then we're going to have time to come back. There's only one other topic after that, and then we're going to be able to hash out anything else. Okay, it's a big one. Abortion.
Yes. Do you
I
want to
understand.
take this one?
Yeah,
Because
that's on me. So I understand that many consider abortion to be murder among particular spiritual views. Specifically, the Bible mentions nothing abortion, and such was conducted even before it was written. Also consider that many states have justifiable homicide. We also cannot render Amendment 1 moot. Social engineering of party aside, Roe v. Wade was overturned on the basis that Amendment 14 was not the appropriate provision for prenatal volition, thereby having the states to presently establish law. As the majority of Americans want federal protections under Code 42, my position is to protect abortion rights with a 3-month minimum, this is federal, without mitigating circumstances. For example, here in Virginia, the law protects circumstances by trimester. This would supersede the federal minimum. In other states, as they choose, a woman may travel to another state if necessary without revocation to her Amendment 8 rights. I do not believe drawing the line between federal and state should be at fetal availability. Access for contraception and fertilization ought to be protected under USC 42 as well, and I will yield.
it's those are interesting points. Those are on the books of what we have been seeing for the past few years. Me personally, like this is what I bring to the table when it comes to abortion. I believe life starts at conception. When it comes to states doing what they need to do as of right now, that's their business. My issue is what defines a life, what defines the value of the life, whether it is conception, whether it's 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, 9 months, doesn't matter to me. When they set their notions, it divides the states in a certain way to where you go from Oklahoma with absolutely no exceptions, except for maybe incest and rape, which in my opinion need to have uh, concessions, going over to Colorado with no exemption up until the point of birth. That breaks my heart because if a woman leaves, regardless of the situation, to go get an abortion in Colorado, if the father in Oklahoma states that's my child, she's taking over state lines to go have murdered. Now we have states against states. It can't be left to the judicial system because judicial system, as we know, takes months at a time. By that time, the deed is already done. The life is already lost. That is my view of it. We're going to be looking at civil strife like we've never had before. We're looking at necessarily the same issues we did in the Civil War. I don't want to bring that up because that's a conversation that hopefully we have at a different time. Slaves could defend themselves. The unborn can't. And as for me, I would love to see concessions. I would love to see health care for pregnant women to be benefited. But as of right now, we are looking at a polarizing detriment to our union that could end up in very, very hostile territory. I hope it doesn't reach that. I hope we can find something new. And I'm going to yield with that because I know I'm into my time, but it's just, I don't think we can leave the value of life to state lines.
Fine. Perfect, right on 2 minutes. So it's about
Yeah.
drawing those lines, and it's been one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to write. And how life, I mean, sperm, eggs, they're alive, plants, things like that. The paper that I've published on my website and just seeded throughout social media on prenatal volition, the Supreme Court refused to make a decision if a fetus has any constitutional rights. It's basically when we cut that cord. And the precedent being of state and federal balance. And this has been a topic for the past 50 years. This is, again, something that America is filtering through with the impartialities of Amendment 1. There are a lot of parallels to anything you might read in any spiritual book. It's just something fundamental that we have there with that. And that's what that Amendment 1 really means. So they're taken literally anything, and a lot of things in the Bible would be highly legal, but it doesn't mention abortion. So that you can't use that argument. But you also have to realize that in the Virginia state law here, in the third trimester, they very much do weigh that out. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I'm not a doctor, but if a woman was 2 weeks due and she's going crazy and she doesn't want to have a kid anymore, so maybe, I don't know, maybe the husband's in the situation, or man, whatever, is in the picture or not. Maybe she was artificially inseminated, whatever it is. And she's like, I don't want it anymore. And then all the doctors like, well, we're not going to abort and then kill the feed once you cut the cords, baby. Heartbeats is when legally, that's not where we're going to draw the line. That's not what I'm suggesting. But when it comes to a heartbeat, it's life is legally deceased when there's a heartbeat. So when it's not detected, but that's not where we draw the line. If you want to draw a line, and that's what I'm talking about. And so going back to where I was saying about they would still deliver that baby. Still, I'm going a little over here, but they would still deliver that baby, and then maybe maybe there's something hormonal going with the mom, or maybe she wanted to give up for abortion at that point. But that's the idea of looking at it from I'm advocating for that Virginia state model, but I can't make as a federal legislator, as a would-be federal legislator, I can't impose that. And I think it's not a good idea to go long like that and try to make what we have here in Virginia state law and keep it at that federal minimum, which very well could get ratified. Anyways, if we had pushed something, if I just don't think that the numbers are there. I just don't. Somebody yield. I went 30 seconds over.
You're good. You're good. With the rebuttal, I will just say Northam had his speech. He had it on radio. The baby will be made comfortable, maybe resuscitated, and the conversation will be taken. What it tells me as a federal representative, where can we allocate funds to proper health care, proper adoption system? What can we do to help the mother who lost her mind or just didn't want to do it anymore? Because we do have firehouses with safe baby drop-offs. We do have the option. Where do we draw the line? What can we do to benefit the adoption system to where abortion is not, it's not an issue, it's unthinkable, because you don't need to deal with it. You could just give it up to adoption and it's taken in and it's taken care of. And the mother doesn't have to have the responsibilities. I'd much rather our money go to that unborn child than overseas. It is something that we can allocate through the people's purse, the house. I value life far too much, especially with our reproduction numbers falling below replacement values. It is absolutely terrible. It is absolutely horrific to see. I'd want to give women these avenues, whether it's rape, whether it's inconvenience. I mean, I get it. Sometimes we make mistakes. We make decisions we regret, but that doesn't mean we have to forfeit the life of an unborn or viability or even beyond that. It's just let us focus more on the American people, the American future, and that includes the children of the unborn. That is just what I'm saying. I want to save the lives. I want to make sure that the avenues are open. With that, I'll yield, and perhaps to our next, because I don't see us yielding on our positions on it, but I believe the conversation is there for avenues.
Hopefully it's the 3-month minimum at the federal level and then let the states figure it out. Okay, so it's on you with media literacy. Time.
Yes, actually, if I may open, media literacy has been very interesting. When it comes to misinformation or biased information or bipartisan information, we're seeing the media come out with all kinds of narratives, whether it be Newsmax, CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News. We see many people coming out with narratives that push either the left or the right to one side, whether it be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Me personally, with everything I see in my media, independent media intake, whether it be CNN, NBC, or independent, I'm favoring Donald Trump. That's just how I see it. But I would love to hear your views on it if you may be so willing to oblige. And if you want, I mean, by all means, we have a lot of good time going on right now.
Yeah. So, it's having to self-moderate is good, but I'm trying to just restart this stupid thing. Okay.
Oh, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Media literacy. I mentioned social engineering before.
Yes.
Amendment 1 in regards to speech can be tricky. We all know what the game of telephone is.
Purple monkey dishwasher.
Facts, biased opinions or not, outright fabrications with or without political funding are both positively and negatively received contagious. Without cohesion or monetary investment, I have been freely advocating the use of the media bias chart by Infantis Media as a powerful compass to remedy disillusionment. It is a diagrammatic rating system which methodology is principled. It has provided me with an independent cognitive framework where I'm able to formulate some of my decision making by credible experts over personalities. Time.
I understand that to a certain extent. When it comes to me, for the past 4 to 8 years, especially in Obama's years, when Obama got inaugurated, I was in 8th grade. Through then, I've been hearing, we're going to see change. We're going to see all kinds of great things. War's going to stop. We're going to have a great economy. We're going to have that. Then we had the '08 recession. Then we had more bombings, the deporter in chief. We had kids in cages. It was a media regardless what was true or false, both sides were attacking each other in vicious ways, and I think that's what builds the partisan angst against the two parties and the average American towards their Republican and Democratic colleague or neighbors. It's just, how could I trust my neighbor if he's a Democrat? How could I trust my neighbor if he's a Republican? Oh, Orange Man bad or Sleepy Joe Biden. Where do we go from here? It is so hard to decipher the truth from the false, and it really puts into perspective that new age, nothing is true, everything's permitted from Assassin's Creed. It's just, where do we go from here? How could we help the American people come together and understand we have problems? Yes. We're trying to get elected. Yes. But the solutions can be reached at a bipartisan ladder to where we all come out on top. Unfortunately, this being said, there is a class of people, which I believe is the establishment, that are coming in and trying to put us all against each other. But that's just me. That's what I see, and that's what I see with the media literacy and the media manipulation. I yield.
Exactly. And then you would learn the housing crisis was from the policies that were established to promote and help home ownership, which the subprime mortgage industry took advantage of, and frankly, the people themselves, but not so much of the fault of their own. This idea of the American dream, and we want to, bottom line, money and ownership comes down to real property. So when these subprime companies gave loans to people that couldn't pay them back, and they realized it, and they cut the cord, and the private sector ended up, doing what they've always done.
Yep.
And the people suffered, and then they started getting their money back, and then COVID happened, and then so it's not necessarily that you can blame any politician or policy itself. It's that in a lot, I know that a lot of people in the South know that, to bail out institutions and like that. But it's very important that we don't look at that resentment. And as as a homeowner, I'm not a homeowner, but as a homeowner, to see your place in that, on how maybe you didn't fully understand and the way it was sold to you, the concept of the um just the American dream, but also a part of you was screwed over. They sold it to you, you know what I mean? And you just believed in it, and then they cut the cord, and so yeah, I understand all that. And when it comes to exploring certain price controls on things such as real estate, so as long as we can get economists that are completely independent, they're not buying us out, they don't have any special interests, and they're like, from my education experience, this is what we can do, and this is what we can't do on an economical standpoint. And that's again what a representative does, is listen to those experts. We're not all skilled in the art with everything. We do have our particular experiences and things like that. But ultimately, a representative is there to bring the principles and have that say, and then basically just be the person that votes for or against something, on behalf of the
Yep.
people, because they're busy, and devote their time for it. It doesn't make us celebrities. It doesn't make us any unequal than anyone else, and it certainly shouldn't be improving our bank accounts and not everyone else's. So I don't know how
I
that
hear
fits
you.
in media literacy, really. And so you got another 2 minutes. Other than that, we're 12 minutes ahead of schedule.
I know, right? And you know what? I think we should segue into a topic that people might enjoy. It is inflation. So with us going from that, and I mean, I don't mean to pick on Obama because Trump has his fair shares. Obama, the buck stops with him. He was commander in chief at the time during the housing crisis of '08. And I mean, my grandmother was a real estate agent. My father was a real estate agent. I dabbled in real estate. I do have my house. I bought my house at 150 at 2020 run. I'm sorry, 2020, right when COVID happened. And oh, sorry, this pop is really messing with me. But that being said, like, these people who couldn't afford the mortgages, the banks, they flopped. We bottom out through the Obama administration. Unfortunately, it's the buck stops with him. So coming now to where we are today, I bought my house in 2020 for 150. Now I'm looking at a tax assessment of 250. I'm like, how did my house over 4 years gain $100,000 in tax value? I mean, I'm paying the taxes. I'm understanding, like, hey, this is part of land taxes, the benefits of not being a Commonwealth. But I love the state of Texas. Where do we go from here? How do we adjust this? Well, quite frankly, we need to visualize where everything's going. I don't mean to go over if I do, but there has been an influx from California, their economy, into other states such as Florida and Texas, and it's driving up the policies. A shack in California that sells for 500,000 would buy you a ranch in Texas. this money coming in, it's not a benefit to the economy. It's people with money coming in, and it's basically showing this influx. And it's startling to me. It's startling to my family. And quite frank, I just a interesting anomaly. So I'll yield there. And your thoughts on that notion?
Yeah, it's important just to not get resentment. And I'm just only slightly distracted because my cat, Bruce, is up in my little production area here when he's not supposed to. So hopefully he
You're
doesn't.
good. Take the time.
So,
I got a cat. His name's Zigzag. He lost his leg in a dog fight.
oh no. Well,
Yeah, he's a three-legged cat named Zigzag.
so, you know, uh, the if Warren Buffett had made some suggestions to what was going on during the recession on how we can save the financial markets. Otherwise, if we hadn't done those things, there would be no financial markets. And when you have that kind of resentment and you hear ideas like virtual currency and things like that, well, it's in the Constitution that Congress uh, controls and sets the weight of measurements and establishes coin and things like that.
Like
So
tariffs and such.
yeah, so going back, like what would we do different if that's even worth exploring as even as a talking point to the housing crisis and what kind of there's a history to that all to what FDR had established, you know, during the Great Depression on how there were safeguards between monies and banks and different businesses, and then how Bill Clinton reversed that, and then and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you really gotta, that's a whole very dynamic conversation to have as far as what we would do different. But um it's important that we don't get resentful at the system or at a particular politician for those things that where the private sector had a lot of involvement themselves. It's just not good game. It's to blame a politician, depending on what it was, if it's something direct. Like one thing I have on Trump, I don't like it that he tries to call fake news when credible sources have suggested, have witnessed, observed him suggesting using nukes to mitigate a hurricane. And then, you know what I mean? And yet why
I've
he
never
would,
heard that, but that's new to
yeah,
me.
why would he would do that either to warm us up to the idea of that type of
I mean,
work, or he that didn't know, he just wants to, or just a sea of other things. That kind of goes back to media literacy. But so yeah, the inflation out of COVID was from price gouge consumer spending. That was the only way our capitalism could keep going, but there's an element of that where CEOs just end up making more and more money. Anyone that tried to get a PPP loan, maybe some people benefited of that, but you saw anyone who's,
it's been
yeah,
abused immensely.
right, there you go. So, and I get that from the relief that I got from COVID. I could just imagine what it's like for people that had to stretch out those checks. And if, you know, geez, you know, family comes
Well,
first
well, I'll
and
say this: there was a Subway in Huntsville, Texas, that claimed those benefits and then shut down their Subway, and the employees there were left with their hands wide open with no money in it. So shit in one hand, hope for the other. And I mean, it's been abused on all levels. But
yeah, and the
I
only
mean,
way that the way that inflation has gone and to get one thing that I think pretty much everyone can agree on is in order to get our wages up is to increase our GDP. And the only thing that I can see is to decouple from China and start
yeah,
advancing
absolutely.
technology and then mitigating AI in the process. Again, there's like 4 or 5 other things that play to connect these dots. Another, I keep seeing it all the time. Politicians, they may connect 1 or 2 dots and then they promote it on their social media, whatever it is, and then they leave out the rest. And that's, I don't know why they do that. It's like, do you think we're dumb? Do you expect, hey, did you not do that yourself? Are you serious? Like you really didn't connect all those. Wow. And some of these people are highly educated. You know what I
That's what
mean?
they say. They're highly educated about shit. What do I know? I'm just a truck driver that holds a steering wheel and looks out a window. But I mean,
Hey,
by all gods,
we are a country. Look at Benjamin Franklin. Education is important. If you pursue that, I'm not, you know, some people, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they left college.
yeah,
And then
I
there's
would
another
I'd yield to
topic.
that. Yeah.
Another thing that is kind of shocking for some people to be from a guy from the left, because I started looking at this objectively, where it's like I see the if you have a college degree or not, and what the wage gap is creating there, and if it's a big thing on the left to promote the general empathy to use tax dollars to help pay for your education, depending on what it is. Like if you're in the military, that's fine. No one has any problem with that. You go to the military, help you.
Yeah, that's a GI Bill. You
Yeah,
sign
yeah.
up, you get paid
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
But just like other things that they're trying to push, I mean, maybe some assistance after COVID, fine, but just the concept of student debt, that's a whole nother, again, dynamic of why higher learning has become expensive as it is. But then to have taxpayers push that on the left for them to vote for it, to for those who didn't go to college, how much of that taxpayer dollars is going to
Did they
go
miss out on?
to me being out earned?
Yeah,
So if you
no.
take it from
If
a guy like me, who's I'm not, you identify as center right, where I'm just independent leaning left. Like if I were nominated by the Democratic Party or whatever, any left leaning kind of thing, that I would do that. And hopefully that's an example to where you can be objective to your own party or the way you voted. And I don't know what it means. You mentioned, the show before us, I talked about, they mentioned George Washington's farewell address. And I'm like,
farewell, yes.
I was like, well, gee, where do you, when he was talking about independence and just what parties could do. And I'm like, well, gee, who's George Washington? Where did he live? Where did he die?
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
living
it's
here.
amazing, huh?
Well,
But
anyway, so yeah, it's just how people that even so close to home here, and I have been very direct with incumbent. I've called him by definition, he's a political bastard. If George Washington is our founding father, and Don Byers trying to represent our district away with all him appeasing plutocracy, he's a political bastard. So I
I
understand.
can agree with you to a certain extent. Yes, if I may, before we run out of time, because we are running to our closing statements, and I want to get this out there, especially when it comes to student loans, student understand. Like you take out these loans, and they end up owing massive amounts of debt due to the predatory interest. I have it envisioned like we have these student loans, we have the principal. I don't want the interest to be stacked on top of them. If you go to be a doctor, you should be rewarded with the opportunity to be so. Yeah, you still need to pay back the principal, but you shouldn't be paying $200,000 on a $50,000, $100,000 loan. I think interest in the government is, and this is in the Bible, interest is worse than murder. But dude, we should not have predatory interest in our government, period. That goes for taxes, that goes for federal loans, that goes for these student loans. I just do not see a moral excuse to have the federal government making money off of the people that borrow these loans. Sure, there could be filing fees, there could be fees that, like, hey, you borrowed this money, it needs to be paid back plus the principal. But for kids to go into debt, 18-year-olds who take out these massive loans, why should they pay 4 to 5 times what they owe, what they borrowed, for 2 to 4 years, let alone even farther beyond that? I mean, it's crazy to me.
Exactly. That's the kind of stuff we need if we were to ever work together. That would be exactly any blind spot that I have, anything lacking experience or knowledge, you saying that right there. And I would bring that to my district. I'd be like, look, this was written, I'm talking about full transparency, right? And national security of course, would have to come first with anything with
True. With
transparency.
security clearance, I mean,
Well, I mean, just stuff, I mean, God,
stuff.
I don't want to get it's like being like a parent, or there's just certain things you don't want to just disclose, and if things are budding and you don't want to freak people out, but you don't want to bullshit them either. So and I just say that because I'm from here, and I never know what kind of committee I might be asked to be on, and I just want people to know that if anything with national security, but we expect corruption is defined by being bought out. You know what I mean? Think about all
Yep.
the civilizations that have ever existed and how they fell, and even our own country and how it's founded by opposing the commercial monopolies. That's essentially what we were doing in our revolution. The war was a consequence, not its purpose. That's a quote from John Adams. So luckily we can do that here. It's all about the ideas. None of us want to go to prison or jail, and getting violent out there is not the way. It's not the way we can come together
Yes, I agree 100%.
with experts like that. So I guess we're just about out of time.
Yep.
Joe and I talked for hours this weekend, like 2 hours earlier today, an hour and a half last night. So we got along really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe that if we can keep this kind of narrative going as not benefit to companies, but benefit to the American people, where you look at the House of Representatives, we're on the floor talking to each other. And as Joe Manchin once said, let's crack open a beer and actually have a conversation. We don't need to look at each other as partisan enemies. We need to look at each other like different sections of our country coming together to what is best for our nation. I mean, shit, I'm a truck driver and you're a lawyer, correct?
Paralegal. I work for, so I got a
Paralegal.
couple patents myself. So
I just look out a window. So I've been by the way, I've been wronged by the legal system. I've been completely destroyed by career prosecutors. That being said, I know we're out of time. My closing statement: I'm Joseph, your everyday truck driver going from coast to coast. District 17, I ran in 2024, lost, running in the midterms 2026. That's me. Till next time.
Hey,
Steven,
but just
Thanks
real
for
quick
having me.
to
We're out of
let you
time.
both know, remember, a house divided falls. It's been said too many times about Congress. So
I'm
that's
still
why I'm
waiting for
glad to see
you.
the unification of you two.
I'm still waiting for your
absolutely.
response, Dylan, to come on my show. I send you an email. I send you an
You,
email.
you mean, come on, my show? Well, we
We'll
could
talk about
combine a
it.
show.
I gotta go.
All right.
All right.
God bless, guys.
Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Y'all have a good one. Till next time. Enjoy it.